Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of our show. Today, bringing another really awesome guest involved in creating a better tomorrow. Today on the show, we have the honor of being joined by Ariel Garten, who is a neuroscientist, an innovator, an entrepreneur, whose purpose is ultimately to empower and help others to overcome various obstacles, mental obstacles, in order to live healthy, happy lives, reach the maximum potential by ultimately harnessing real-time brain data to improve focus, relaxation, as well as meditation and mindfulness properties. Ariel is a co-founder of InteraXon. They are the makers of Muse, which is a brain sensing headband. It is based on clinical grade electroencephalography technology, or EEG technology, to be used by mediators and researchers all around the world. Before she founded the company, Ariel was not only trained as a neuroscientist, working in research labs, doing everything from exploring the neural basis of consciousness, researching Parkinson's disease, but also she was a practicing psychotherapist, and in addition to that, also started in her own international clothing lines. So clearly multi-talented, and this creativity and entrepreneurial spirit, ultimately combined with the fascination of the human brain, led her to start InteraXon with partners in Silicon Valley, ultimately to develop this platform that we're getting into today. A lot of really cool topics to get into that we don't normally touch on, but honored to have with us Ariel Garten. Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show today.
Thank you so much, Ira, and hello, everyone.
Great seeing you. Really great having you. Before we get into Muse, interaction, and all things sort of non-invasive, would love to sort of start off at the beginning and hear a little bit more about you. I mean, I noticed before a lot of the work you were doing on the non-invasive space, you were actually doing some kind of pretty invasive work in terms of deep brain stimulation and studying hippocampal neurogenesis and all sorts of wild stuff like that. Take us back a little bit to sort of pre-Muse days and a little bit about your background.
Sure. So the invasive stuff was never ever with humans, in rats. I worked in the lab of Dr. Andreas Lozano, and that was a hippocampal neurogenesis lab where they were focused on deep brain stimulation and ultimately had studies that today, this was now 20 years ago I was working there, so studies that today have evolved into deep brain stimulation therapies for people with Parkinson's, etc. But back then, my job was to count the brain cells in rats that were developed through hippocampal neurogenesis.
Mm-hmm.
So we had rats in the lab. We would put them on running wheels to help them generate new neurons in the hippocampus, the part of their brain responsible for learning and memory. And they would also do DBS studies to see if they could create new neurons in these rats. And it turns out that when you put a rat on a running wheel, it does generate new neurons. And when you stimulate the dentate gyrus of their hippocampus, it also creates new neurons. And the foundation of work like that led me into the field of neuroscience more deeply and led to the establishment of Muse, which is a technology that reads your brainwave activity in order to help you enhance your brain and your life.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. No, again, it was kind of just intriguing work, and you saw the whole area of neuroplasticity and the way our brains can change later on, which we'll be getting into with your technology, is just really cool on its own front. But yeah, so I mean, again, you were just mentioning about sort of the early days and the genesis of Muse and interaction, and I thought it was kind of interesting that we're sort of two sort of discrete paths here. One, you had friends in Silicon Valley that were thinking about brain computer interfaces, non-invasive ones to control computers with their minds. At the same time, you're practicing as a psychotherapist, you're teaching mindfulness and meditation, and you are in this situation where it's like, how do we ultimately know that these processes are doing what we want them to do? Where is the sort of the biofeedback, and ultimately how do we know what's going on? And I think this was a major part in sort of your thinking about how you would ultimately develop Muse. Talk a little bit about those days and a little bit about sort of the problems you initially were thinking about. Hey, this technology could really be useful in my current psychotherapy practice.
Totally. So, as a psychotherapist, I was teaching people to meditate. We're now still going back 15 to 20 years. 15 to 20 years ago, meditation was new, but in the world of psychotherapy, it was really a frontline approach. When I say new, it wasn't something that everybody was doing. And so my patients would come in with anxiety, with depression, and of course, all of my training said, teach them to meditate, and they should go home and establish a meditation practice. And my patients would come in, I would tell them to meditate. They'd be like, yeah, I've heard meditation's really cool. And they'd go home and they had anxiety, depression, or they were just normal people who, like all of us, didn't have a lot of patience, and they could never like actually get their meditation to happen. And I was struggling because I was somebody who had a million ideas and my brain never stopped, and I couldn't meditate. And so, here I was supposed to be helping people with their meditation. And with all of my training, I still couldn't do it. And at the same time, I had been working with this technology, trying to create a brain computer interface where people could interact with the world directly with their mind. And in the lab, what we would do is we would get people to sit down and to focus, and they would make a light grow brighter, and to relax, and that would cause the music around them to dim. And we were trying to give people biofeedback while they were, doing this thing with their brain to say, like, yes, yes, you can control the lights or you can dim the music. And what we really realized was that the important thing they were doing was not focusing to make the lights brighter. It's the fact that they were focusing, and then they had feedback that showed them that they were focusing, or that they were, as they were trying to get the music to go dim, they were relaxing. And then the music quieted, and that would reinforce to them, like, yes, you relaxed. And there was just this massive aha moment with me and my team, with Trevor Coleman and Chris Amity, the guys I was working with on this project. And we had this aha moment of, hold on, we can really give people feedback to tell them when they're focused and tell them when they're relaxed, to show them what their brain is doing. And that can also really help them meditate. Because at that time, my colleague Trevor was a practicing Buddhist. He was deep into meditation. I was, as I've mentioned, struggling to do it. And it was like, wow, if this technology, when you put it on your head, can tell you when you're focused and when you're relaxed and when you're in your meditation state, this could really help people meditate. And so that was this huge aha moment that brought the technology we were working on into the direction of really doing something useful. And I started using it, and it taught me how to meditate. I'm very grateful for it. And now, I guess 10, 15 years later, there are 500,000 people around the world who have all used Muse to help them start or enhance their meditation practice and ultimately improve their brain health.
And it's interesting. We obviously we haven't talked a lot on the show about electroencephalography, but obviously people think about it from movies or whatever, and you see all hundreds of these leads and fancy helmets and all that bit. Could you talk just for a little bit? I know this is sort of a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's important for the audience. One, what are some of the basic things? Because it's not just one thing happening in the brain. We got everything from delta to theta, alpha, beta, and gamma waves, which are everything from what happens in deep sleep to when we're really thinking about something. If you could just talk a couple minutes about that, and then at the same time, sort of a little bit of what went into taking really I an EEG machine, well, that's a really complicated thing. What went on sort of in the initial years and kind of creating prototypes and stuff and sort of shrinking down one of these really complex machines into something that ultimately, you just wear like a headband, and you could tell a little background there and any cool stories that went along with it. That'd be great.
Totally. Okay, so primer for everybody who's listening. What are your brain waves? How do we detect them? Why do they matter?
Right.
So inside our brain, we have neurons. Those neurons communicate electrochemically. So neurons are the cells of the brain, and they send electrical pulses to one another in order to communicate. The sum total of those electrical pulses can be read on the surface of the head, and those are your brain waves. You can kind of think about it as the different parts of our brain are like instruments in an orchestra, and they're all playing music. Each different instruments, different areas have their own pieces. The tubas are playing one thing, the strings are another. And as you stand back, you can listen to this concert, this beautiful musical orchestration that you hear from the surface of the head. Or if you're in the audience, your seat in the audience. So it's kind of like when we put the electrode on the head, we are now listening to the music of the brain. We're listening to your brain waves. So our brain waves fluctuate throughout the day. Throughout the day, we have a range of brain waves happening at every moment. But in different states, we become dominant in different brain waves. So when you're engaged and thinking and active, you have an increase in beta activity. When you are anxious, you might see an even greater activity in high beta, so really, really high frequency beta. As you start to relax and focus and calm down, you'll see an increase in alpha waves. When you are in a sort of mind-wandering dream state, you might see an increase in theta waves. And then as you lie down to go to sleep, our brain waves slow down. So as you close your eyes, you're going to see alpha waves. As you start to move into deep sleep, you're going to see delta waves. So delta is our slowest wave, and that happens when you're in deep, deep sleep. Just one beautiful pulse slowly through your whole brain. So our brainwave states can determine how we feel. And as we go throughout the day, we have different brainwave states, which, indicate how you're feeling. And by shifting your brainwave states, you can also affect how you feel. Now, brainwaves are typically read with a technology called EEG, electroencephalography. And you might have seen pictures of people in a research lab with lots of electrodes all over their head. Well, we took that complicated laboratory technology and made it super simple. We made it thin, easy to wear, with no wires, no goop, no gel, nothing. And it was an unbelievably complex process to take this lab technology and make it clean and simple, but we did it. And the Muse today is 4 small little silver patches on a band that sit on your forehead. So in the same way that like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch can rate your heart rate, Muse, in a very simple, easy to wear wearable, can detect your brain activity and give you real-time feedback and meaningful information to help you improve your brain.
And alongside that, after going through sort of the engineering of this, I mean, you have an extremely comprehensive dossier of partners in terms of universities. You have the Mayo Clinic here. You got a lot of other cool institutes like the Noetic Sciences, and you have a group at Abu Dhabi that did part of the Maritime Academy. So a lot of people looking at this from all different purposes, no doubt. Say just a couple words again about the sort of the collaborative testing that went into this to ultimately get it ready for prime time for consumers, because it's a lot that went into it. So if you could just talk a little bit about that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been amazing. So, we started in a research lab at the University of Toronto. And as we brought it out of the lab and made it smaller and smaller and easier to use, neuroscientists started realizing that they could use this technology instead of their large, multi-channel EEG systems to be able to do distributed neuroscience. So neuroscientists all over the world started to buy Muse and both do experiments in the lab and distribute them and take them out into the wild. So at the University of Victoria, for example, they did research with baseball players wearing Muse while they made the perfect swing at the bat and their perfect hit. And they looked at the brainwave states associated with perfect play. There were researchers who took muses to Malawi in situations where you wouldn't have a complex EEG. We had researchers at the Mayo Clinic. They started doing studies with Muse really early in 2015,
Hmm.
and they were using our meditation intervention to be able to help women with breast cancer go through the cancer care process, and they would use Muse meditation to help them calm their minds and bodies through the process and demonstrated that it improved their stress and fatigue. And so now Mayo Clinic has done something like 7 studies with Muse. They've even used it with their own doctors and healthcare professionals in
Hmm.
order to help them reduce burnout, reduce stress, and improve cognitive function.
Yeah.
So, to date, there have been over 200 studies published with Muse, using it both as a clinical grade EEG, where no EEG has gone before. And it's been in like the NASA Mars simulator and all sorts of cool places.
Right.
And then another set of studies that have been using Muse interventionally to help support people living with different conditions, to help improve their uh, stress, their fatigue, their cognition, and their sleep.
Mhm. Yeah, all very important. I was really intrigued by the one, and we'll come back to that when we get sort of into sort of health more into healthcare. But the Mayo Clinic work, use in terms of meditation and women diagnosed with breast cancer and some of the integrative applications there are just really cool. And we have talked a little bit about the potential of that on the show, so I was excited to see active there. Before we go there, though, let's talk a little bit about obviously Muse is extremely well known for, as you were telling in the beginning, sort of helping people to meditate, do mindfulness correctly. This is something no doubt can enhance all of us. I'm terrible at it, and I thought it was kind of interesting. It's sort of material I was reading about how the feedback comes in audio and visual input. So hey, if I'm feeling too calm in my meditation session, I might hear different types of winds and ocean waves. Well, my mind starts wandering. That will change and allow me to talk a little bit what happens. It's sort of in a typical Muse session if I'm trying to meditate and I'm doing it wrong. What are some of the dynamics that I might bump into when using a product?
Sure. So when you meditate with Muse, you take the device, you slip it on your head, you open the app on your phone. We have all sorts of different kinds of meditation sessions that you can use. We have meditation for heart, brain, breath, body. The most popular is the mind meditation, and that's where you're hearing the sound of your own mind while you meditate, in order to help you get into the state and know if you're doing it right.
Mhm.
So there, the metaphor we use is your mind is like the weather. So when you're thinking or distracted, you're going to hear it as stormy. So when your mind wanders, you hear the storm, and that becomes your cue to quiet your mind and focus your attention. And when you quiet your mind and focus your attention, the sound quiets and you hear little birds chirping. And that reinforces you to say, yep, you're in the right state. You're in the right state.
Mhm.
And it turns out that this exercise makes it really simple to either start your practice or deepen it. And then at the end of your session, you get data. You get charts and graphs and scores that actually show you what your brain was doing moment by moment, what your brain waves were doing, what your heart rate was doing. And so it really, really helps you hone into that understanding of your mind and body and improve your meditation practice to get all of the benefits of that, and also bring a whole new set of understandings to your mind overall.
Awesome. Now, the next application is something that I need, and we have chatted a little bit on the show about sleep and sleep hygiene. Obviously, this is an extremely important topic in 2025. Could you take a little time to talk about? I mean, because you mentioned about the importance of and the ability of Muse, if used properly, to reduce stress, but at the same time, how we can improve sleep. I know you have a second generation product called Muse S, and then something known as digital sleeping pills, which sounds really cool because I I don't want to take a lot of sleeping pills, but walk us through what's happening here. This is extremely important and timely for our audience.
Thank you. Yeah, so Muse is an overall brain health platform. So meditation is one way to improve brain health, and sleep is another one. When you don't sleep well, it is eroding your brain's capabilities. So sleep is super important. And so with our Muse S series, we're actually able to track sleep as effectively as a sleep lab. So you slip on the Muse S as you're falling asleep. we can use things called the digital sleeping pill, which is able to give you bio and neurofeedback to help you fall asleep faster. It's very, very cool. You put on an audio so you can listen to a sleep story or a meditation or a soundscape. And as the system tracks your brain and heart, it is identifying when you're starting to move in from wakefulness into sleep, and it's changing the audio that you're listening to. So, in the same way that an adult might tell a bedtime story to a child, and as the beginning of the story, you're, engaging them. And then as they start to get sleepier, you're slowing down, you're quieting your voice. As their eyes start shutting, you get really quiet, and then you close the book and creep out of the room. Well, Muse is tracking your brain in the same way, and it's adjusting the audio in a way that's designed to guide your brain into sleep. And once you've fallen asleep, it turns off the audio. And then if you wear the Muse throughout the night, if you wake up again in the middle of the night, which many of us do, Muse brings back in the same experience that helped you fall asleep the first time to help you fall back asleep. So this technology has been demonstrated to improve latency to sleep onset, so how long it takes you to fall asleep. It improves it by 55% and can improve overall sleep quality by over 20%. So it really works. And if you're having sleep problems, it is super key. And then we actually have a brand new feature that we're releasing that we built with some labs in the US and in Spain. And we are releasing a feature that actually enhances your deep sleep. So with little audio signals, it helps deepen your delta waves during deep sleep to help improve your overall sleep quality and possibly also improve your cognition the next day. So it's very exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely need that. I haven't slept well in years, so no, that's exciting to know, and especially for I don't want to start taking a lot of sleeping pills, and then melatonin never seems to work. But no, that's really cool. I gotta look into that for me. But yeah, I mean, Ariel, looking out a bit now, because obviously, these are for some of the short-term opportunities, and which are extremely exciting on their right. But there's a lot of other stuff here potentially, and potential applications. And I thought maybe we could just chat, sort of looking a little bit at the horizon here. And if there's obviously confidential stuff that you're working on, don't talk about it. But one of the areas that needs to say is very exciting is the whole area of sort of cognitive research applications. And it was interestingly a couple of years ago on the show, we hosted these folks from the United States Air Force that were developing something called the iNeurals project, which I can't sum it up except for the fact there was EEG technology that was ultimately, hey, if I'm learning to fly this plane in front of the computer system and all of that, and the flight simulator, I get it done faster with EEG and all sorts of feedback. I learned to fly this plane or the space shuttle or whatever it may be in 3 months instead of 6 months. It was just really cool and really sort of cutting edge stuff. Clearly, applications in terms of neurofeedback, the ability to learn, to process information. I mean, this gets into sort of where we are today, not just with the technology, brain-computer interfaces and everything else. Where are we going? I mean, what excites you? What do you see as some of the possibilities here in terms of research projects you like to do, potential things you can talk about in the sort of the cognitive learning space? Take us down that path.
Sure. So we have a lot of research topics currently underway with different laboratories. And one of the main things that Muse is used for right now is a sleep tool to track and enhance sleep. So there are studies with children with autism, with individuals with Parkinson's, with individuals with Alzheimer's, seeing if we can track their sleep, which we know we can, in their homes so that we can really see what sleep looks like. And then B, analyze that brain data to be able to see why the sleeping brain is different. And then C, use that information to try to improve their brain function. So the deep sleep stimulation paradigm that I mentioned, that is actually being done for Alzheimer's in MCI research. So we're working with actually 3 different labs, and their intention is to use this technology with older adults with mild cognitive impairment. Now, as you age, your delta waves get smaller and smaller and smaller during sleep, and that may be related to cognitive decline. because you need deep restorative sleep in order for your brain to function effectively, in order to flush out the toxins during sleep, in order to be able to regenerate. And one of the theories is that if you're able to boost deep sleep with this audio stimulation, then you can potentially enhance the sleep of somebody with mild cognitive impairment and thereby potentially slow the aging and the degradation of their brain. So, it's in the research phase, so that is yet to be proved out, but we are lucky enough to be able to take that very same technology and put it into the app and deliver it to healthy consumers right now, because the research has shown that it really does enhance deep sleep. So, that's one super cool piece of research that we hope will bear fruit shortly in terms of actually improving the brain long term. Another amazing direction is a second technology that we haven't talked about, and that's called
Okay.
FNIRS, functional near infrared spectroscopy.
Ooh,
Uh, so this is a technology that we've just put into our latest device, the Athena, and it is able to track the blood flow to the brain and track the oxygen to the brain. So you might have heard of an fMRI. In an
yeah.
fMRI, you go into this big tube and there's magnets swirling around your head, and it's able to track the oxygen delivery and oxygen utilization of different parts of your brain.
Got it.
So when you're thinking, when your brain is working, you see those parts light up because they have more oxygen in them. Well, FNIRS is able to do something similar, but just in this tiny, tiny, tiny little package. It's basically like a red and an infrared LED that's super souped up, and it's able to detect the oxygen consumption
Mm-hmm.
um, of your brain. And the Muse Athena actually has that technology in it. Right now, anybody can buy one and use it. And it is used to track your prefrontal cortex left and right and see how effective the oxygen consumption is. And we also have exercises in it that give you neurofeedback to help you enhance the oxygen delivery in the prefrontal cortex. And we also have studies going with a few different labs looking at people with mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's and seeing if this technology can actually even improve their cognitive function. And so that's something, in the near future we hope to see play out as well.
So that's exciting, and again, that sort of also feeds into not just the work you were doing sort of at the beginning of the career you're talking about in terms of neurogenesis and neuroplasticity and all that, but clearly, a lot of this when we talk about dementia, when we talk about a lot of the other problems as we age, it makes me think of this whole area of what's defined as age tech now, and just an extreme, there's a very large population, let's say, in sort of the silver market for these non-invasive opportunities, especially as they pertain to brain aging, which is such an important thing. Any Again, and if this is confidential, you don't have to go into it, but any interesting collaborations you're doing on the age, like we'll call the age tech front, whether it's sort of integration of something like Muse with virtual reality. I mean, we've talked a little bit of that stuff on the show, but thinking more broadly about sort of the over 65 population, the aging population, any specific things on that front, because it seems like that's a major potential area for you guys.
Yeah, actually, so I sit on the advisory board of CABI, the Center for Aging
Sure.
and Brain Innovation.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky enough to see lots of innovations coming to the fore.
Mm-hmm.
VR is one that we see often, and there are combinations of Muse and VR that are being used for anxiety and PTSD.
Yep.
Um, uh, in terms of older adults, we have Muse used in long-term care facilities
Okay.
to help improve the both the anxiety and depression and aging of the brain. Um, CABI has used Muse in a study looking at older adults with loneliness, because that's a
Mm-hmm.
consideration with the much older age group, less so, those in the 50s and 60s. I'm getting into the silver hair club here too, and I'm only 46.
Okay.
Um, and so Muse has been used to demonstrated to reduce loneliness with older
Yep.
adults, which is lovely. And then just looking at age tech in general, a lot of it tends to focus on things like fall prevention and really non-sexy solutions for aging. As we age, we have problems in our body,
Oh, yeah.
bed sores and not moving and falling and not being motivated to exercise. Some of the things that, are more exciting sounding tend to involve AI and robotics. So for the
Yep.
last several years, we've seen a number of robotics tools pop up, um, robots that will speak to you, keep you engaged. There's a sweet little pup that looks like a seal that purrs, that looks like a virtual, it's not virtual, it's a physical pet that is robotic and can engage you.
Hmm.
All of these things are really still targeted at older seniors who are living on their own or need help.
Hmm.
Other unsexy solutions like pill packs and digital pills tracking. But then there are sexier solutions for us younger silver hairs, that all involve AI and the ability to give us coaching and guidance to
Yep.
improve our life. And there's the whole longevity movement that's intended to bring you solutions while you're still young, and aging every day in order to stave off aging. And there we have a range of different blood tests that are identifying new biomarkers for early cancer detection, for longevity. There are nootropics like rapamycin that are intended to slow down the aging process. So there's, as much as there are super practical solutions, I am looking here at an incontinence sensing solution to empower caregivers to provide effective quality care. The things that we really, really actually need when we age.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's the promise of potentially staving off that aging and
Hmm.
avoiding, at least for a period of time, the need for some of these solutions.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I know just a couple weeks ago you were giving a talk at Health, again at this intersection of EEG, of the functional NIRS, the brain oxygenation. You talked about the AI coaching, which as well is kind of obviously a very hot theme, but nice to see that that whole piece is merged into what you're doing. Ariel, what should we be on the lookout for in terms of 2026? I mean, obviously, you had a lot going on this year. Any other things that we should be thinking about in terms of interaction, in terms of Muse and next generation versions of the product, and then anything related to you, other conferences and talks that may be coming up where we could listen to you, run into you, and meet you. Anything I missed, please, while we have you today.
Sure, sure. So, for Muse, our technology, the hardware is staying the same and for a good while. We love the Muse S Athena. We've, finally created this multi-sensor system that works really, really well. But we're always updating the features, that are available in the app. So with the one piece of hardware, you get new features. And one feature coming up in 2026 is Smart Nap and Smart Alarm. So that allows you to set the amount of time that you want for your nap. Like, I need to be up by this time. And then Muse will track your stages of sleep and wake you up just at the right time so that it doesn't take away from your nighttime sleep and so that you're not groggy for the rest of the day. And it will also aid you in falling asleep with the digital sleeping pill features. So it's kind of like
Nice.
this, power nap solution. And then we also have a smart alarm coming up. Again, it allows you to wake up at the right time with your sleep cycle, so you're not going to feel groggy. So, those are just two of the features. As we continue to go, we always have far more ideas than we have time to implement them. But we're always coming up with new things. And you can see some of those at CES. So we'll be at
Yep.
CES 2026 in the Canadian Pavilion. We're always at the sleep conference. The ASM Sleep Conference, and we continue to visit conferences throughout the year.
Awesome. Well, we will continue to follow you. I'm very excited about not just what you created there, but the whole sort of evolving portfolio and all these opportunities, because I think they're kind of endless, and the market is sort of unlimited here for you. So again, very excited about everything you're doing. Again, for everybody out there that is going to be listening to this episode across the various podcast networks, or who will be watching on the YouTube channel, again, you've been spending time with Ariel Garten, co-founder, InteraXon, makers of the Muse system, doing really amazing things to allow people to live healthier, happier lives, reach their full potential with the cutting edge of neurotechnology, non-invasive neurotechnologies. Ariel, I want to thank you for, again, taking the time to come talk to us today and walk us through these exciting projects. Obviously, thank you for everything you're doing for patients. And as we like to say on our show, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow using science and technology for all of us. Really, a really exciting story, and I look forward to continuing to follow you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been an absolutely incredible journey. It's amazing how quickly technology has been changing, and it's been incredibly fun to be able to harness all of the advances in technology. I was giving a talk the other day where we sort of looked back on what we've been doing over the last 20 years, and I realized how much technology has changed. So when we started, back in the lab in 2001, it was a system that had a wired fiber optic cable that
Mm-hmm.
went to a computer with an ISA card. So, like
Yep.
super wired ancient hardware. And it wasn't until the smartphone came out, really in 2010, that we could untether from that and have a computer that could be in your pocket and could make this mobile. Like it's been so recent. And so the first Muse that we really made that was wireless. So we were able to do the dry sensor earlier than 2010,
Right.
but the wireless one only came in 2010, and we had a Kickstarter in 2012 for it. And then we had cloud computing that arose after that. And we're like, oh my God, we can do this processing not on the phone, but actually up in the cloud and store data in the cloud. And so we incorporated that. And then we had improvements in the amount of processing the phone could do. So we were able to have better and better experiences. And then we were able to put more sensors in the device, not just EEG, but also PPG.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we had the huge leap forward of machine learning. And we actually started doing deep learning back in 2014, 2015,
Mm-hmm.
because we were in Toronto, which was by Jeffrey Hinton's lab. Jeff Hinton
Sure.
is the father of deep learning, and we actually had like his students collaborating with us. So like the deep learning that we've been doing for so long finally became meaningful and useful.
Yep.
And then we were able to do things like create algorithms that could stage your sleep as effectively as a sleep lab and like as effectively as a sleep technician, moment by moment, tell you if you were sleeping well. And now we're able to bring those AI solutions into the app in, large language models, coaching interpretations. So it's been incredible to track the shifts in technology and how they impact what we've been able to do and create. And so, when we think about what the next steps are, it's like it's amazing. My
Yeah.
mind is ready to be blown yet again.
Yeah. And I look forward to continue to follow you. And yeah, let's do a follow-up episode next year, because I'm sure there'll be a dozen other applications that have come online that you haven't thought of yet. But no, really great stuff. I really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this, because it is such an exciting topic.
Thank you so much.
Definitely. Be well.